Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Green Square Talks Battlebots. And joining me in this episode is Civilian Arc. You should check out his YouTube channel as he posts a lot of interesting stuff on there, and he also runs the Instagram account in the Rainbow Square. How you doing today?
I am doing good. How about you, Green?
Awesome. I am doing very well today. So in this video, we'll be talking about BattleBots episode number 2, BattleBots 2020. We'll be going over like our thoughts and reactions to each fight one by one. Before we get started here, I will let you know that if you have not seen this episode yet, this video will be full of spoilers from that episode. So if you don't want spoilers, I would recommend avoiding this video for a while. So now let's get started with the first fight where we have Shatter and Ghost Raptor. So my first thought from this one was I heard Shatter's game plan that they were gonna go potentially weapon on weapon to try and go for or Ghost Raptor's internal motors because they aren't that far below the spinner. And I was first thinking risky strategy because if that hammer hits the wrong place, it could potentially be a repeat of Witch Doctor and Shatter from last season. But the happy thing is, though, is that they proved me wrong on that, and within one or two hammer shots, Ghost Raptor's weapon was down. You got any thoughts on this?
Yeah, it was really interesting to see how Shatter attacked Ghost Raptor. Watching Ghost Raptor, it did look like it had made a lot of improvements since 2016. Um, but yeah, Shatter's game plan, it was risky, but it was definitely worth the risk.
Yeah, I predicted Shatter when looking over this fight card, thinking they were going to box rush Ghost Raptor, slow down that spinner, prevent it from getting up to speed. But no, they just went right for it just to disable it, and they were able to do that successfully. One
Yeah.
thing I was surprised about is that outer layer of armor. It came off so easily compared to last season. I'm not sure if that was on purpose or not. What do you
Yeah,
think?
didn't I might need to rewatch, but I saw like a large chunk of their back armor come off after one of those hammer shots, and I was like, "Wait, what just happened?"
That was my question before this fight officially started because they fired a hammer shot right when they called out
Yeah.
robots activate, and some pieces of it came off, and then more of it came off on the
Yeah,
first hammer strike.
I was like, is Shatter just gonna lose all his armor before Ghost Raptor even gets a hit on him, or what's gonna happen here?
Yeah, but still, it worked out well for Shatter here as they landed lots of big hits. I gotta give Ghost Raptor a lot of credit. I completely agree with a lot of the improvements you mentioned that they made, as lots of them were very effective. Like that lifter, even though Ghost Raptor's spinner was down, was actually quite effective. As I think if it would have gone to the judges, I think Ghost Raptor may win the aggression and control portion if it happened to go there. But no, I don't
Yeah,
think.
it definitely looked like Ghost Raptor made a lot of internal improvements, and while he did lose this fight, I'm really excited to see where he goes in the rest of this season.
Oh
Maybe he'll
yeah.
pull off 2 wins and get into the postseason.
We already know he'll take on Chomp at some point this season, which I'm very
That's going
much
to be an
looking forward to
interesting
that.
fight considering the new Chomp design that's going on.
Yeah. And then, of course, Shatter as well. Now, some of their big improvements when I read through their lists of stuff, there was their durability. We saw that very well in this one. That hammer worked well. Oh, they were able to take a lot of those pushes. And yeah, yeah, I look forward to seeing these two bots throughout the season as I think both of them could go quite far. And I think Ghost Raptor, even though their motors did burn out in this one, they had an excellent first fight this season. I bet they can easily come back from that.
Yeah, they both these bots definitely seem like they have postseason potential. If Raptor gets the motors back in shape and gets itself working, I can see it making it to the round of 16 or maybe even the quarterfinals.
I could definitely see that as well. All right, let's get on to the next fight where we have Ribbot and Tracer. And I gotta say that when I was making my predictions, this was the fight I was probably the least confident with out of the 7 fights in this episode, as both of these bots were each ones I was looking forward to, was betting they both could make the top 32. and so on. What were your thoughts on this?
Um, I was out of all the fights in this fight card, I was a little indifferent on this because I didn't know much about Tracer. Like I know some stuff about Ribbot because I
Yeah,
watched the 2019 season, but I didn't know where this fight was gonna go for the most part. I thought that Tracer's weapon, I thought it looked strong enough to maybe flip Ribbot and then do a lot of damage to Ribbot. Then again, with Tracer's weird compact design, I thought Ribbot could also maybe get a few hits in and like have a lot of potential damage to maybe like flip over Tracer, which it did.
yeah. Yeah, I did not expect Ribbot was going to go with their undercutter, but when they talked about their game plan for that fight, it made complete sense for that one. And I was expecting we could see. Oh, well, I should start over on this part. I was a little disappointed in Tracer's performance in this one just because it sounded like it was going to be such a nightmare of a bot in this one before that fight started. But then they after they got a wheel, they got flipped over on weapon exchange, and I did not think if it went down, it was going to go down in that way.
Yeah, Tracer definitely showed some potential with its weapon. I'm thinking that maybe against I'd like to see it perform against something like another like mid trending on high tier bot like Valkyrie or something like that. I'd like to see fights like those because Tracer does look like it has potential. Ribbot also looks like it has a ton of potential this season. It showed a lot of potential last season.
Oh yeah, I completely agree with that. Yeah, and I don't know if you noticed this as well, but when Tracer was flipped over and you saw like the backside of the bot, like right where the wheels are that close to touching the ground. So I wonder if it maybe could be possible if Tracer made like a few minor improvements there that they could possibly fix that flipping over issue and be able to drive upside down, kind of like what we saw Bite Force and Hypershock do in past seasons.
Yeah, yeah, or they could try and get like a Witch Doctor 2016 or 2018 self writer.
That's another option. So yeah, this was an enjoyable fight. I bet we'll see Tracer back and doing some big things, and this one recovering from it. And yeah, I bet we could see Ribbot. I'll bet we'll see Ribbot back stronger than ever. All right, let's get on to the third fight here, where we have Kraken and Black Dragon. Before I start this one, I want to apologize to Black Dragon fans and teammates over what I'm about to say. But if I was a judge here, I would have scored that fight in favor of Kraken.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I had an opinion on this judge's decision. There's always going to be a bad judge's decision or two each year. That's just how it's going to be. But like I was really impressed on how Kraken was able to fend off Black Dragon for the most part. Like it was really impressive. The driver for Kraken is like really good. It seems.
Oh yeah,
And
Kraken is back and stronger than ever. They are far better from the past two seasons, and they put up a heck of a fight on Black Dragon. Even though they
yeah,
did not come out with the win in this decision, that was a very impressive fight for them. Even though their crusher fell like a minute into this fight, but yeah,
yeah,
Kraken
I
put up a
really
heck
would.
of a fight in that one.
Yeah, I really would have given it to Kraken, but like I do think that the selection committee for this year will also take into account how well Black Kraken did in this fight, and maybe that'll get him a good spot in the top 32 if Kraken has two more wins to make up for this loss,
Yeah,
quote unquote.
yeah. So yeah, I've talked with a few of the Black Dragon members, and we saw a lot of the new fronts they had. They have a couple spinners for this fight, and including a much safer flamethrower. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see that thing in action as we saw it spit fuel out at Kraken at one point, but that was
Didn't
about it.
Kraken also have a flamethrower? But
Yeah,
Kraken also.
Kraken. I think they use. I wonder if they use all their fuel right after that first bite. Hey, but that's about all we saw out of that.
Yeah.
So really impressive fight out of both bots, and we know Kraken's going to take on Witch Doctor sometime this season. That'll be an exciting fight.
That's going to be an interesting fight, considering what we have to talk about Witch Doctor in
Yeah,
very later on.
yeah. I honestly wouldn't doubt that those two go up against each other
Uh,
potentially as their second fight, because that's typically what Battlebots will try to do sometimes.
yeah, that would be crazy because both Witch Doctor and Kraken seem like amazing drivers.
Yeah. All right, so then let's go to the next fight where we have Huge and Mammoth, and was my favorite fight of the episode.
This
That was
had to have
and the
this had
most.
to have been one of if not the best modern BattleBots fight of all time.
I
Like,
gotta agree with that. The thing I did not expect out of this was that Mammoth is so much more durable this season. Like that was awesome. Even with the chunks that Huge took out of parts of it, Mammoth is like 10
one
times improved from last season. Like I don't think they would win the giant nut, but I bet they would make the top 32 if they keep going with what they've been doing.
Yeah, they definitely showed what they can do and how they can perform what their bot does. The Mammoth was just insane this fight. It put on one of the most amazing performances ever. It was just bouncing around, but then like when I saw it flip Huge out of the arena, I was like, "Oh my god, are you serious?"
Yeah, that was kind of my reaction. Like I could not believe this. Like we saw so many front flips and back flips from Mammoth, and then they eventually get the get Huge right in the right spot and be able to win this fight by knockout. That was awesome, and yeah,
If, if Mammoth could beat Huge, but Bronco couldn't beat Huge, does this mean Mammoth is better than Bronco?
Mammoth does have the ability to self-right this season, as we saw it multiple times in this one. So I bet they could potentially beat a flipper bot like Bronco, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very excited for Mammoth this season, as that was an awesome win. And my only concern would be potentially horizontal spinners, but still, I bet this bot will manage to snag a top 32 spot and go quite far in this tournament.
Yeah, Huge also looks like it could go far as it always does. It just got really unlucky this fight, and I'm sure Huge will make up for that with two good wins.
Yeah, I agree with that. I bet we'll see a big recovery from Huge, like what we saw last season. All right, next fight. Hijinx and Claw Viper. And Claw Viper, I completely underestimated that bot when making my predictions. I did not think it was so fast like what we saw in that episode. And that thing going from 0 to 20 miles per hour in such a short amount of time, like that is fantastic. And the fact that it was also able to shake off a lot of Hijinx's blows as well, as Hijinx has a quite powerful spinner, so that was quite impressive.
Yeah, Hijinx looks like it has like one of the biggest horizontal spinners out there. Like it looks like it's kind of trending on Ice Waves size a little bit, maybe a bit smaller.
Yeah, and kind
But
of like a kind of a little bit improved from Valkyrie. I think it's a little more stable than Valkyrie's spinner, but of course Valkyrie is also quite stable. And
yeah, one thing I didn't take into account for in this fight is that Claw Viper is ran by one of the guys from Team Warhawk.
oh yeah, the
And
driver of War Stop, I believe it was, is what they said.
yeah, and I've seen him compete in a few robotic combat events, specifically ARC, Arizona Robotic Combat, and he is a phenomenal driver. He is like one of the best drivers I've ever seen. So like I forgot to even think of that when I predicted Hijinx would win, but when I saw him driving, I'm like, oh wait, of, I'm so stupid.
Yeah, I wish I honestly thought of that when predicting this one, as I predicted Hijinx for this fight and so on. What my guess was that Hijinx had a speed controller issue, kind of like what Extinguisher had, which we'll talk about in the next fight.
Yeah,
They
that sounds
haven't.
like
I
about
don't
what's
think they
happened.
posted a damage report or anything about that, talking about that. But that would be my best guess on what happened there, knowing that their weapon was still working perfectly, but they weren't moving.
Yeah, the Claw Viper looks like it has a lot of potential this season. I don't think that it can hold up to horizontal spinners and low vertical spinners like Lockjaw or something like that. But I can see Claw Viper putting up a good fight against other robots in that in category. I can see it taking out some high tier bots like Rotator or bots like that, or
Which we'll
maybe
see
even
Rotator in the next episode as they are the main event.
yeah.
Yeah, I bet Claw Viper will definitely make the top 32 and could make a big run if they can keep up what they were able to do in this episode.
Yeah, it's gonna be definitely exciting to see how Claw Viper. I don't know all of Claw Viper's fights, but it's gonna be interesting to see how Claw Viper performs in its next two fights.
Oh yeah. All right, next up we got Extinguisher and Perfect Phoenix. And so Perfect Phoenix, driven by an 11-year-old who is a terrific driver. If you want to see more of his driving skills, check out Battlebots 2018 as he competed in that with Captain Doom and got third place and yeah, had
He,
some outstanding driving abilities that he showed off in there.
he's one of the best from the fights I've seen that he's done. He's one of the best robotic drivers of the sport. He reaches Matt Vasquez levels of intensity sometimes.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I would honestly love to see a fight between Perfect Phoenix and Whiplash now that you
That would be
mentioned Matt
crazy.
Vasquez. Yeah, it would be. So yeah, Extinguisher posted today both on Instagram and Facebook telling us because they got KO'd in one shot to the front that was a speed controller issue pretty much as their speed controllers had a flaw where even under little impact they can easily be shorted out and that's what happened in this fight but clearly though they did work on that to fix that as they posted a video of them in the test box along with using that hammer once again that I am looking forward to see hitting a few opponents, ramming into the sides of the arena just to take a big impact. And they didn't shut down after that, like how they did after that first hit from Perfect Phoenix.
Yeah, Extinguisher, from what I've seen, it looks like it's gotten huge amounts of buffs. It definitely looks like it has a much better design than it did in 2019. Stuff like this will sometimes happen though, and it's unlucky. It's unlucky when stuff like this happens, but I can still see Extinguisher doing good. I was really confused why Extinguisher didn't go with its vertical spinner instead of its
They said before the episode that they wanted their heavy front and up
yeah,
they wanted their heavy front for since Perfect Phoenix is a massive spinner and if they came with the vertical spinner they wouldn't be able to attach that heavy front. So that's why they
that
went with the hammer configuration. They also went with the hammer because if they can box rush Perfect Phoenix like what they attempted to do in this fight, uh, they if they can shut down if they can stop Perfect Phoenix's weapon from spinning and then just hit them with the hammer. Perfect Phoenix is supposedly not well armored on top.
yeah that I also Perfect Phoenix does look like it has a lot of potential. I will say this fight kind of disappointed me. I wanted to see a lot more from Extinguisher. I wanted to see a lot more from Perfect Phoenix.
Yeah, because
But
I'm kind of not sure right now just how much damage that spinner can do, but I bet we'll see that in future fights. We'll have that answered.
yeah,
Yeah, I was also not expecting this fight to end so quickly.
so a bit disappointing, but I'm excited to see how both bots will handle their next opponents.
Agreed. I completely agree with that. All right, so then next one, the last one, the main event, Hydra and Witch Doctor. And I gotta say, Hydra is, after getting KO'd by Minotaur in less than a minute last season, They definitely improved their bot quite a bit, knowing they were able to take a few shots to the sides from Witch Doctor.
Yeah, I think the main difference between something like Minotaur and something like Hydra is that, I mean, something like Minotaur and between something like Witch Doctor is that Minotaur usually uses its own like force of its drum to self-right, while Witch Doctor takes like 2 or 3 seconds to use its self-righter. But like in BattleBot's time, that's like an hour. So like Hydra could capitalize on that stuff. But this fight was insanity. I did that had to be one of the biggest flips. Like the starting flip that Hydra did on the opening was insane.
Yeah, they meant Jake Ewert mentioned that he doubled the power within that flipper, and we saw that in effect as we saw Witch Doctor go flying. I was hoping to see Witch Doctor hit the ceiling, hearing that they doubled their power, but even though that didn't happen, that's perfectly okay. Now I really
Yeah.
hope though that Hydra goes up against Gemini, for example, where bots that are half the weight just to see how high they go flying.
Ima- Imagine Hydra versus the Four Horsemen.
Oh, that would be awesome too.
That would be glorious.
Yes,
Imagine the Four Horsemen all get stuck on the ceiling.
yes, we saw how high Apollo sent the swarm, which is the
Yeah.
same design by the Four Horsemen flying.
And
If we saw
and
Hydra do the same thing there,
and Sub-Zero in the unaired fight of 2019, it definitely flipped the Four Horsemen really high up. So, and Hydra's definitely has much more power than
oh yeah.
Sub-Zero. So that would be crazy.
All right, so yeah, back to this fight then. Looked like Witch Doctor, after a few flips, they lost one of the teeth on their spinner, which is why they were so off balance when the weapon was spinning up. And didn't they? I want to say they lost a weapon belt as well, but I'm not 100% sure on
I
that.
don't. I don't think it was a belt. I'm
I'm
not
probably thinking
entirely
of a
sure.
different fight.
I'm gonna have to rewatch. Yeah, because I think I saw a belt in one of the vertical spinners. I think it was Black Dragon lost its
Yeah.
belt in its fight. But
I do
yeah,
know for sure Witch Doctor did lose a tooth on one of those discs there
yeah, yeah.
earlier.
And when that happens, that makes the bot like really jumpy, which made it much more easier for Hydra to get under
Yeah.
and do
And
some
that
more
possibly was
flipping.
the cause for I'm guessing the weapon fire that was going on in their system about halfway into the fight,
Yeah.
as knowing what happened to Tombstone when they fought Rotator last season.
Oh yeah. It just definitely proves how powerful Witch Doctor's weapon actually is that when it hits the ground and it just destroys its own tooth without even like hitting a weapon like Tombstones or another spinner, that's just crazy. That just shows how insane Witch Doctor's weapon is.
So now here's a question for you. Lots of people on the internet have been saying that Hydra should have been counted out at the end of that fight. What do you think of that?
Um So I'm not entirely sure what happened if Hydra was having internal issues, but when it looked like it was getting counted out on the blue square, it looked kind of like there was some kind of seam in the floor they were getting stuck on. I'm not sure about this, but it looked like because when I saw them getting counted out, I'm like, oh god, are we gonna have another Cobalt versus Duck moment?
Oh, so true.
I don't think Hydra should have been counted out because it showed that they were controlled movement. They got out of the blue square. I think that should have been enough. And it looked like when they stopped moving after that, it looked like time was about up. And I think that's why it went into split decision, is that Hydra was basically immobile at the end there.
Yeah, I agree with that. Along with the few shots that Witch Doctor did get on the sides, and that's a way to prove that Hydra is very much improved on their armor this
Oh
season.
yeah.
And yeah, I support your opinion on that question, as I think Hydra should not have been. Well, I disagree on people's opinions that Hydra should have been counted out, as what Jake Ewert said at the end and during his post-fight interview was that his speed controllers were overheating, and so what he ended up doing was he stopped moving temporarily right at the beginning of the countdown, and then
Oh
managed to
yeah.
drive
That
forward, I think is what got him out of the blue square, and then yeah, he stopped moving, and by that
yeah.
time it was under 10 seconds left, I believe.
But this was like one of the best main events ever in this entire BattleBots history. That this
Oh
was
yeah.
like that it was like almost Tombstone Minotaur levels of great.
Yeah, I agree with that. I highly enjoyed this fight, and I liked it a lot better than the first main event.
Yeah, definitely much quicker. I think if I were to choose between Hydra and Endgame, I'd currently pick Hydra probably, just because it showed that it could do a lot more. It looked like Tombstone was stuck on on the screws or something. So I think Hydra. Hydra looks like a top four or even finalist bot.
Yeah,
The,
I
the,
highly agree with that. I bet if they I bet if they get one, I bet if they win their next two fights, which I don't know who exactly I don't know any other potential opponents they have as for the previews in the beginning part of the first episode. But we know that Witch Doctor will take on Kraken and Slam Mo sometime this season, which both should be
I,
incredible fights.
I'm thinking that Kraken or Slammo, one of the two, those two will probably be a post-season fight, probably because I don't. It's. I think Witch Doctor would get maybe. I'm not gonna say better quality robot because both Kraken and Slammo show potential, but like a more well-known bot, like say Lockjaw.
I could see that. Yeah, I could definitely see them taking on Lockjaw, knowing we haven't seen them fight as for the 4 seasons of Battlebots so far, and that would be an exciting fight.
Wait, can you say that again? I couldn't hear you.
Oh, pretty much. I could see Lockjaw and Witch Doctor being a very exciting fight, knowing those four, or knowing they haven't fought in the first 4 seasons of Battlebots so far.
And there's only like what 8 bots that have been in all 5 seasons of Modern BattleBots.
I don't know for sure, but I know it's not many.
Like
Yes,
Tombstone,
Tombstone, Witch
Bronco,
Doctor, Lockjaw. I don't know if I
Bronco.
really want to count Bronco since it sounds like they're going to be just in the bounty thing, but we don't know for sure.
Yeah, so like 5 Tombstone, Witch Doctor, Hypershock, Lockjaw,
Yep,
Captain Shredderator.
yep, those two as well. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing Captain Shredderator fight again. That was really sad that they lost that fight with Lockjaw on a simple pin because they were looking like after Lockjaw gave up on using that shield that they could potentially win, and then Lockjaw was having weapon issues,
It
and then
definitely
Captain
looked
Shredderator had that break issue.
it definitely looks like Captain Shredderator had some major improvements in between seasons. It might go 2-1 this year and go into the postseason. I might maybe I'm not truly sure about that.
Yeah, I bet Captain Shredder will do a lot better than it has the past few seasons. All right, so anything else based off of this fight that you have to share?
Not really. I think we covered pretty much everything that we could cover. This fight was intense. Like it showed how great Hydra really was, and Hydra was really unappreciated as a flipper. It
Yeah,
shows massive potential.
I completely agree with that.
I would not be surprised if Hydra won the Giant Nut this year. I'm not saying that's not my top bet, but it's probably like my top 5 bet on who's going to win the Giant Nut this year.
Yeah, I completely agree. Hydra has shown that a lot of the improvements they made for this season worked very well in this fight. Even though they did take a bunch of damage, as Witch Doctor did land a bunch of hits, both right on the flips and right on the sides of Hydra. But Hydra proved that they can take out top tier bots. It's like how they took out Bronco last season, and then Witch Doctor as well. I bet they recover. They had a battery fire in their fight, or I don't know if motor fire, pretty much in their fight with Shatter. They had the same problem in this fight. I bet they can recover from this one just as easily as they did last season.
They definitely could. We've seen Witch Doctor recover from this stuff before. We'll definitely see them do it again. I am not doubting that Witch Doctor will make the postseason. I am almost 100% sure they will.
I completely agree with that. I bet they will. I bet they will go on a major run in the top 32. kind of like what Minotaur and Bombshell did after they were runner-ups the last few seasons. They recovered
Yeah.
from early defeats and yeah, managed to make it into the
Unless
postseason and go quite far in the tournament.
unless Witch Doctor gets the runner up curse.
Yeah. All right, so I think since that's all from us, I believe that'll do it for this episode. Thank you for watching here, and hopefully you'll check out another one of these episodes once again.